Okay guys, so what we have here today is a Powerqueen lithium iron phosphate battery, 6 amp hours. I was watching a couple reviews on the 10 amp hour version of this. It was like 50 bucks. This thing here, I think I paid $29.99 and then they raised it up to 30 bucks. But the 10 amp did not have a short circuit protection. But I will tell you, the 6 amp does. Now I already took it out of its case. There really is just glue on each one of these four corners that you kind of have to get up under and then pop it off. Now, probably wondering why I'm popping this off and what I'm going to be doing here, but what we're going to do is look at a couple things and then we're going to do a load test. We're not going to do the typical 0.2, we're just going to do a 1C test on this. So my challenge is that I actually need it to not work the way it's working right now. Now I know a lot of people are going to think I'm crazy because I'm going to disable the BMS, but what's happening is I'm going to use this to start a generator. Generator engine I think is around 389 cc's, and what's happening is when I turn it on, it thinks it's a short circuit when I turn the ignition on because of the amp draw on startup. So the BMS immediately cuts out and it won't let it start. It did start like maybe 1 out of 10 times. That's just probably because the BMS is not that great. But there's the model of the BMS. You can actually see it's rated at 10 amps, even though this is a 6 amp battery. What I did find out is when I was charging, I was able to charge actually at I think 15 amps, which is not good. You're only supposed to charge this. I think they recommended charging it up at like 1 amp or 1.5 amps or something. But one thing I noticed is, the batteries, see if I can show you, that's the only thing I found on the battery. And I searched on the internet for 32706 and I came up with a 32700. One spec appeared to be close. It was a 6 amp hour battery, and so basically these things hold about, I don't know, give or take 19 watt hours each. So the pack itself should be somewhere in the neighborhood of 75 watt hours that it stores. And I believe this, I'm trying to remember what this thing is here. This thing, this is a 12 volt light. It's rated at 65 watts. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna hook up a test here, and I should get about an hour out of this, lighting this bulb up, but we'll run a test. There's no doubt in my mind that we'll probably get the full rated amp hour out of this battery. Doesn't seem to be badly made at all. It's just that I'm going to need to disable the BMS because I need this to crank my engine over. And what I'm going to probably do is just pull the battery. What I'll end up doing is pull the battery sense wires off, and I'll disable the BMS and I'll go straight into the battery negative. So yeah, I know I'm disabling a lot of the safety features, but to be very honest with you, the generator charges I think at 14.6, which is what the chargers recommended for this. And I don't think I'm going to exceed the incoming wattage. So I don't think I'm going to be going at 15 watts and have to worry about, putting more than 3.65 volts in on each one of these batteries. And by the way, there is four. There's 4 of these batteries. So I think the one I saw online with the 10 amp hour had 8 batteries in it, but I wanted this small form factor because this is the size I need to fit inside the generator compartment. And the price was great for 29 bucks. I would be willing to bet that I probably don't even have to hook up once I started it, I could just disconnect either the positive and negative, and that battery would probably last for, I don't know, 30 starts, I'd be willing to bet. But I'm going to just leave it connected because I don't believe, I did test the output of the generator's charging circuit, and it literally is 14, I think it was 14.6. So that's what I'm gonna do to this battery. So what we'll do now is we'll go ahead and hook this up. We'll get it hooked up to do the load test, just to verify if it is good for, you know, the 70 watts or whatever, 75 watts that are supposed to be in the battery. And then I'll just go ahead and hook the negative directly up to the battery and then just disable the BMS. I'll probably use the BMS for something else down the road, but I'm not going to use it for this particular application. Okay, I almost have everything hooked up. It's hard to see on this particular meter, but you can see the battery is at 13.7. That's about 3.4 volts per cell. This was charged up and sat for a day or two, so the cell voltage did go down a little bit. So it's pretty much a full battery, and you can see right now we're on 0 watts and 0 watt hours. So I've got the 65 watt bulb up. The only thing I don't have connected is the negative. We'll go ahead and connect that up and then just show you the time. So it's 2:55, and let's go ahead and start the test. Okay, so you can see the bulb's now lit, and we are using 68 watts, 67 watts, 5.3 amps at 12.7 volts DC. All right, so like I said, we'll just come back. I'll try to come back every 15 minutes or something like that, just to check in on this, just to make sure that it's still going. Now, it actually, because the BMS is hooked up right now, it would shut down on a battery low condition. And unfortunately, this would shut off because I don't have it connected to an external battery. So we would lose where we were, which is why, we'll check in every 15 minutes. But I don't know what these BMSs are programmed to shut down at. My guess is somewhere like around 2.5. So somewhere around 10 volts, it would shut off. So, but we're holding steady at 12.6, and I expect it'll probably stay somewhere around there, maybe a little less for the life of this test. All right, we'll check back. Okay, guys, it's 3:25, so that's about a half an hour into the test. And let's take a look where we are here. So we're sitting at 12.4, still drawing 65 watts, 5.2 amps. Let's see if we can see how many watt hours were used. I'm gonna guess probably 2.65 amp hours were used. So 33 watt hours. So that's typical of what a half an hour would be. So remember, this battery says it has 6 amp hours, and we're coming up on 3 here soon. So we'll check back. Okay, guys, it's 3:53, which is almost about an hour. You can see there an hour on the TE. And we're sitting at 12.05 volts, which is about 3.015 a cell. And you can see we're down to almost 62 watts, right at 5.14 amps it's currently using. But if you look at the amp hours that we've used so far, you'll see it here in a second. We've used 5.16 amp hours, 64 watt hours. So we're gonna try to ride this down as low as we can. So it's sitting at 3.015 now. My guess is it's probably gonna get on. I don't know when the BMS is gonna shut off, but we're gonna find out. But we haven't quite got the full 6 amp hours yet out of the battery. You see we're at 5.2. So we'll keep our eye on this here, and hopefully we can catch this before it shuts down and the meter shuts off. But almost there. We've got a little bit to go, and hopefully it can make it to 6 amp hours. Okay, it's going downhill fast, so you can see we're at 11.3, 5.6 amp hours. You have to remember something too. I'm drawing this at I don't know, better parts of almost 1C instead of the normal test of 0.2. So instead of 15 watts, we're taking, well, we were taking 65, now we're taking 55. So it's gonna shut off real soon. 11.1. So it's under 2.8 volts a cell. but you can see we've got 5.7 amp hours out of it. And yeah, 11.06 is dropping really fast. So hopefully the BMS actually does shut it off. I guess we'll see, because at 2.5, obviously that's 2.5 times 4 is 10. So it should shut off at the very worst case 10 volts. I know the battery itself is actually, I think the spec, when I looked it up, was the low point would to recommend not to go below 2.5. So hopefully the BMS shuts it off a little bit before that. The worst case scenario shuts it off at 10. If it doesn't, I'll just shut it off. And that'll also tell me that the BMS really is not doing a great job. I will say, and I think I said at the beginning, and I'll test it before I modify this battery, it definitely has a short circuit protection, because I don't think I demonstrated that earlier, but I'll demonstrate it once I charge it back up. So we're just gonna leave it run here. Hopefully my cell phone doesn't die. I don't know how much memory I have in my cell phone, but I don't know what's gonna die first here, going below 10 or my cell phone's shutting off. You'll see. 5.82 amp hours, which is actually pretty impressive at this draw. The amps that I'm putting through right now. So 10.1. So let's see here. Hopefully it shuts off at 10. Oh, it doesn't look like it's gonna shut off. Look at that. So I'm not gonna let it get down any lower, but this just, I don't know, maybe goes to show me here that this BMS is not gonna shut this thing off on low voltage. Yep, I just shut it off, so that was good. Okay, so it went down to 9.5. It was good that we caught that. So it went down to 9.5, which is a little lower than I would like, but it did shut off, which is good. Now, one thing I did notice, to turn the BMS back on, what I found is I had to get a voltage higher than 12 volts at the terminal. I think I used 16. I didn't test it like at 13 or 14. I'll have to do that when I charge it back up. But you do definitely need a voltage higher than 12 volts to turn the BMS back on once it shuts off. Alright, just wanted to show the last test. The battery is actually fully charged back up, and we're just going to show you the voltage here. It's at 1428. I did check each individual cell. They're fairly well balanced with each other. And I want to do the short circuit test now to show you that the BMS will shut it off and not let this short. So I basically got this white wire here on the negative, and we're just going to touch the positive. See how? See that? So the BMS shuts off. The BMS shuts the connection off. So I don't know. I guess this is the difference with the 6 amp hour, or maybe they fixed the 10 amp hours for doing that as well. But definitely protects you from that. Now, the downfall for me, I'm just going to check the voltage again just to show you that it still works. The downfall for me is when I actually try to start a motor with that is the BMS shuts it off, so it never cranks over. And that's why I want to disable the BMS. So I won't let the battery drop down to a low voltage condition where the cells are in danger. And there would be a slight issue if it was overcharging, but the regulation on the generator is fairly strong. Like I said, it's a steady 14.4. Now it is possible that these cells could get out of balance at some point, but I did top balance them all with each other, and I actually, during that test, I drained them all down and then charged them back up, and they stayed within tolerance of each other. So I'm not too concerned about one battery going way higher than the rest. So the next step, what we're going to do is we're going to disable this BMS, and then we're going to put it into the generator and test it out. All right, well, I wanted to follow up on this video here. The battery's in place inside the generator, and it did just rain here, so I had the generator outside in the rain, which isn't the best thing for this. But what we're gonna do here is let's close it up and try to give it a start. So we're gonna go ahead and put the generator in the on position. You can see that it actually comes on, and then we'll go ahead and give it a start.